Hello, welcome to my vlog, and my name is Bianca, as you may know, or maybe it's your first time here. In the second to the last vlog, I talked about how I would give you an update on why I'm going back to full-time work, and so that's what this vlog is about. And I also have a very special guest who's my friend Anne, who is an inspiration to me, and we're going to be talking all things financial independence, womanhood, career, and our journeys. So the main reason why I am back in full-time work is I really wanted to up-level my life by a lot. And in my former career, I was in the finance industry, so financial services, private equity, and even before that, I worked at KPMG as an auditor, and so I was very career focused. And after about 6 years of doing that full time, I was quite burnt out and physically going through a few health struggles and just feeling overall very, very tired and exhausted and burnt out and no purpose. And I decided to leave my corporate job in 2017. After working full-time for 6 years, and I quit with a bit of FU money and no plan really. I was obviously a yoga teacher at the time, and after I quit, I fell into modeling and yoga teaching, and that kind of became my main source of income. And I did that for 3 years, so 2017, 2018, 2019. And in that time frame, I learned a lot. And I'll link all my lessons learned. I wrote a really long Medium article on it, so I'll link that in the description below. But when 2020 hit, even before the pandemic, I was looking for kind of a next step in my journey. And so being a bit inspired by the entrepreneurial stories of other people, I thought I would want to pivot into being a coach, or something that would be a lot more involved than just teaching yoga classes, because I guess my soul felt a little unfulfilled. I enjoyed it. I was really good at it. I had a great connection with my students, but I think I was just looking for something more. And then all of a sudden the pandemic hit, and it was just a huge time to reassess where my life was going. I've never been in a position before where my main sources of income were just shut down completely by this entity. Of course, everyone was affected by COVID, but in a way, I was so not in control of my livelihood. March 15th and after that, everything shut down. So my classes, my niche was corporate yoga, so I'd teach at people's offices, and that was completely taken. Everything shifted to work from home, which I intuitively knew that wasn't going to change. It was going to, be a hybrid situation after that, which is awesome. We'll get to that later. But then, yeah, it was just a whoa, all of a sudden everything just dried up. And it was really humbling and really good for me to understand what is my business model? Where's this going? What's the future of yoga? What's the future of work? All this. And I think it was such an uncertain time for me, as well as so many other people, whereas other people in certain professions kind of weren't affected by it in a monetary sense. And so I think that was the catalyst for me to think of maybe perhaps going back into finance again. And then timing so happened where my old director at my old firm, they launched a new fund, and they were hey, we need someone who has expertise in this, this, and this. We'd love to bring you back. No questions asked. The firm was in Newport and I was living in San Diego, and they were we're remote right now. We don't care where you live. It's online. And in my head, I was oh my gosh, this is my dream scenario. I feel I could resonate with the work, but it was the whole office, environment that could sometimes be a bit that's not a word. Restrictive. Is that a word? So then I went back on a contract basis, and it was 40 hours a week, Monday through Friday, which I hadn't been back to that flow since 2017. I had like my entire schedule like flexible or free, I guess, like from in those 3 years that I quit. So basically I went back Monday through Friday on a remote basis, worked from home, contract basis for this private equity fund. And I enjoyed it. Like I never knew that it was just that alternate work arrangement that would really speak to me. And it wasn't really the work because I enjoyed the work and I was good at it. So then after like a year-ish into the position, I was like, well, I have two options. I could either lean in and, kickstart my career again and like be on this path, or I can, like basically to the contract be like, or no, I have three options. I can like kickstart my career, try to find like some place I can really, really grow long term. Two, I could stay as a contractor, like not be so goal oriented as far as like improving my situation, kind of like status quo for now. Or three is like scale back and do yoga and do all the other projects I was doing. And so after I really assessed all those options, I was like, no, I actually want to lean in. And I was trying to manifest like a job where I felt super aligned, where they accepted me for who I am, like with my past as like not being as traditional, because I left for 3 years and I wanted like a great culture. I wanted to work with really smart people, really driven. I wanted to still be in finance or some sort of like company that was doing something like that. So it was tough. Like I applied to a lot of jobs. Things didn't work out. There was one blockchain company I really, really wanted to work for. They said they worked like 16-hour days. And I was like, holy moly, like knowing my health, like and my balance and like all that, I just like, I got to the fourth round and they kept repeating in the interview, like, hey, we work a lot. Like, I don't know if this is like going to work for you kind of thing. I don't know. Maybe they got the sense that I'm not like a 16-hour day kind of girl. And so long story short, the company I work for now reached out and it was just like such a good fit. And I'm so, so happy. And I just couldn't be happier. Like that's what brought me to Newport, because they're also actually in Newport. And they worked with me on the whole like remote hybrid situation. I get to stay here during the week sometimes, and it's just amazing. So I just can't believe that you could have balance, you can have the culture that you want, and also like almost like full circle. Like I didn't know that I would go back full time. And I believe in the long-term growth prospects of this company and my own personal growth prospects financially and even just like career and as a person. And I think until I found that, I wasn't going to go back full time, but it came to my lap and it worked. So that's where I am now, and I'm really grateful. And so that's the story of why I'm back full time. When other people are kind of reassessing, maybe quitting their corporate job, I'm actually coming from a place where I already did that. I'm coming back and I'm actually really happy. So yeah, I think it's offering me a lot of balance that I didn't know existed, and giving me a lot more options as far as my path and things I want to do, and being able to invest a lot, being able to save and do the things that make me passionate outside of like my work hours. So that is the long and short of it. Thank you for watching. And I'm going to bring in my friend Anne, who's going to share a little bit about her story. She has such a unique one. And so stay tuned. All right. So this is my friend Anne, and how I know her is back in 2013. She actually got introduced to me by my friend Ryan, because I was in my yoga teacher training in Orange County at Core Power Yoga, and you were actually you were also in teacher training.
I was, yeah.
Yeah. And then you needed to take a few classes, right? Like audit other studios and yeah. So she came to my class and I was like such a newbie. So I'm going to let Anne share a little bit about her story. She is so inspiring. She's one of my dearest friends. So take it away.
Aw, well, thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited just to be sitting with you and talking with you. And I know you've been an inspiration to me and all the content you've created and all the yoga and the journey you have too. We've known each other since 2014. And so, yeah, we've grown up a little bit and discovered a lot of things. So just a little bit about me. My name is Anne, and a little bit about my background. I graduated from college. I went into corporate for a couple years and I started getting burnt out, and I was 24 and I didn't understand why I needed to work. And so I think it was more like, is this it for life? Get a job, get married, find a partner, have kids, have the whole white picket fence life. And that wasn't necessarily what I wanted, or I didn't know what I want at 24 years old. So I decided that I was going to try to apply to different job opportunities, and one came up in China. And so it was an internship for a marketing role in a 5-star German hotel. So it was interesting because it was like German management in China. So I decided to take the internship. I was already 2 years into corporate. I was already in a manager role, but then I quit everything. I kind of took out that ego and said, you know what, I want an internship and just to explore what's out there. And so
what year was China? What year was that big move from US to?
that move was 2014, the end of 2014.
Oh, right after we met, basically. Or right before we met.
Right before, yeah.
Okay.
I left, yeah. And so I was in China and I was working for a couple years, and I went, after the year in the hotel industry, I decided to move to a startup in China, and then loved that as well. And then it's really cold in China, and so
I didn't know that.
I think one day I was just sitting on my computer shopping for flights. I don't know if you ever do that. Sometimes you just look at flights are fun. Like, where should I go next? And I was just looking up, like, what are the most tropical places I could find that wasn't in the States or Asia? And Australia came to mind. And so I booked a one-way ticket to Australia 6 months out from that date. And I thought to myself, like, either I'll figure out a way to get to Australia in 6 months, or the ticket was so cheap that, I could let it go. It's a one-way ticket. It's fine. Like, it was, I think at that time, a one-way ticket was like $300. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to take that chance. So what happened after that was 6 months later, I was on a plane to Australia.
That's amazing.
On a one-way ticket. And
oh, one way, yeah.
One way.
Yeah. How much funds did you have when you moved? Like, kind of give us you don't have to tell us numbers, but like.
Yeah, no, I didn't have a lot. I think I was always that person who trusted things. And when I actually left for China, I think I only had a couple $1,000s in my bank account. That was it. But I knew I was going there for a job, so I would get paid. And then also the round trip ticket, it was bought by the company anyway. So that was just my money, my emergency fund. And I didn't need a lot back then. The cost of living is different. And so, yeah, so I showed up in Sydney thinking I'll find a job. And that was during the working holiday visa, where you could get a visa pretty easily. There are certain requirements for it, and yeah, definitely look into it if you ever wanted to move to New Zealand or Australia, the working holiday visa. But I showed up in Sydney and I didn't enjoy it personally.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
And I think it was because it reminded me too much of home, which was Los Angeles, LA, kind of beach life a little bit. They were kind of coastal as well.
Okay. And a little backstory, guys. So Anne grew up in Long Beach area, and she went to USC for college. So, and she's of Thai descent, and I'm Filipino. So
yeah. So so I thought to myself, well, Sydney looks exactly like home. Why would I want to live here? It wasn't going to be that different of an experience. And then I had to compete, to get that kind of visa. And so I told myself that I would start traveling up the coast and see if any city, I could vibe with any city. So I went up the Gold Coast to Brisbane and just kind of exploring. I didn't have a job. I was looking for a job, and then I ended up all the way in the north, in a city called Cairns, which is where the Great Barrier Reef is.
Oh my gosh, beautiful. I've never been.
Yeah, but it's gorgeous. And I ended up finding a marketing role for a Great Barrier Reef tour company. So part of my role was like doing marketing, like social media management, and then like client management with hotels. So it's a tour company. So that means that they needed hotels partners to recommend their tours. You know, those like kind of desk kind of reception and all that, concierge to recommend tours, to book tours. And so like all of a sudden I had over 100 hotel accounts to book this tour. Anyway, I loved it so much. Like my days included snorkeling and going on the boat whenever I wanted. I got paid hourly, which was really good. And then I got really bored after 8 months. It was funny because it's like paradise. And I was
And can I share, like, you did meet an Australian?
Yeah, I did meet an Australian boy. But yeah, that's the thing is like life was so like quiet and there was nothing kind of like to strive for. And yeah, it didn't really work out from there, but it gave me a really good perspective on just like, yeah, like what do I want in my life? Because some people want comfort. Some people want to do like make a difference. Like I think it gave me kind of the first perspective of like, do I want this life or not? Or do I want to switch tracks? Because that was the first time where I was like, this is paradise. Like I could live here. But is the work fulfilling to me or not? Right?
And what year was this now?
This was 2016.
Okay.
Right? So 2 years-ish after China. Or
Okay.
I lived in China for about 2 years-ish and then went there. So it was my third year abroad.
Okay.
So at that point, I actually left Australia to go to Thailand without any job. At that point, I was like, I don't want any job at all. I don't want to be employed. And I'm just going to live in Thailand for a while. And then
So where did you live when you arrived?
I was in Bangkok for, I want to say a month or two, but I decided, hey, I'll just travel around a little bit. So I ended up in Chiang Mai, which is northern Thailand.
That's right.
And that's where I ended up like settling for a little bit.
And were you staying at like hostels or like different? Because like I knew you have family in Thailand, but you weren't staying with them, right?
I wasn't staying with them. I was more staying in like long-term hostels.
Okay.
Like I would work a deal with like the owners where I would get my own room.
Yeah.
But then that's like the best way to meet people. So I didn't mind that life at all if I had my own space.
Okay, yeah.
And so I worked out like, oh, can I do like a weekly thing or a monthly thing? So it was a while like that. But yeah, it was, I think 6 months in Thailand of just kind of traveling around. And then by that time, I think there was so much space and like kind of like I could decide to do whatever I wanted that
Like you had like that creativity like spark.
right. Or just to like let yourself get a little bit bored. Right? To not run and run and run, be that rat race. It's just like, what am I gonna do today? Right?
Yeah.
So being more intentional. And yeah, like I do think that like letting yourself like explore and it, like sometimes that silence is discomforting, right? It's like very like, should I be doing something? And especially if people find their worth outside or in what they do,
Yes.
right? That's very like nerve-wracking, I feel like. But I ended up going to the mountains of Chiang Mai and I found this hill tribe that was just beautiful. They made their own clothes. Like people were wearing clothes that were like 30 years old and looked brand new because it was like literally like they'd like handmade it. Like people would wear their like wedding dresses like for fun because it was just like a white kind of like dress, like straight dress. And I was just like, this is amazing. So I ended up working with them to come up with this line of meditation cushions called Tushies.
I have one. It's gosh.
Yeah, so that was like my first entrepreneurial like project and you know, from scratch. It was so crazy that like I designed it from scratch. I had it manufactured by hand by these Hill Tribe women and that started my entrepreneurial journey for 2 years where I would travel back and forth between Thailand and LA or the States to like bring my stuff here, import, export, work with the Hill Tribe women for more designs. And then I ended up going to a yoga festival and then meeting an editor for a big magazine that they ended up putting Tushies, that's the meditation cushion brand, into the magazine. So I sold out. And so it was just really, really fun.
So good.
Yeah. But then like, this is what's interesting is the way we have conversations like this. It's like, this isn't actually the dream, right? Like everything has its life cycle. You could decide to do something and then change your mind.
Yeah, and that's something you taught me. Because
Right.
I feel like there could be some things like a word like failure associated with maybe switching gears or anything like that. And yeah, so keep going. Like,
Right. And so after 2 years, I realized I had a couple investors call me and just said, like, what if I paid you an X amount of money, like as a retainer every month? How much product can you produce for me? I'd love to buy and sell for you. And because the whole mission was around supporting Hill Tribe women to stay at home, like I did not want a factory. Like this was all done on a freelance basis that I ran into the ceiling, right? Of like, this is always going to be a scaling problem. And I didn't want to scale. I think that was the whole mission of me starting it, was I wanted to work with women in order for them to stay at home with their children, because like child trafficking is real in Thailand and like sex trafficking. And so just, I realized at that point, like, do I continue to push for something that isn't scalable, or do I maybe allow myself to switch tracks and like kind of lose that maybe identity of being an entrepreneur?
yeah.
Right. So at that point, after 2 years, I just was kind of getting burnt out and I didn't know what to do. So I came back. It was holiday time, 2017. So towards the end of 2017.
Okay.
And yeah. And it was just 4 years ago, right? Like 5 now. But I just decided to apply to a few jobs for fun and see what happened.
Were you back in LA when you were doing this?
Yeah, I was back at my parents' house of like trying to figure out my next step. Do I continue on with Tushies?
So in the meantime, you were staying at your parents' house, so like your costs were manageable,
Right?
Because you didn't have like
I didn't have a lot of money either,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
It's a small business. I was trying to like, everything was like, like cash basis for me. Like I didn't borrow a lot for the business. And yeah, so I ended up like getting 3 job offers in the span of 2 weeks over holiday time. And at that point, I decided to accept one, and it was in kind of the mental health space, and
Santa Monica,
in Santa Monica, in LA, and I'm still at that company today after over 4 years. But I think to be able to kind of let go of that identity quickly, I think this is like the end. We'll probably go into a little more stories here and there, but I wanted to ask you a little bit on like, how do you reinvent yourself, right? You've changed from being a yoga instructor to a finance person to back and forth. How do you deal with that?
I think I honestly there's a lot of grieving in every transition that I've done. When I found out that I was going to go back and take that contract job in 2020, actually, Anne, you had stayed at my place like in San Diego, and we had like a whole self-care weekend. And I remember like we did a yoga class at my apartment, and I just remember like crying because it was just like such a letting go of this freedom that I had, that I knew I was giving up some, at least the time aspect of it. And I think reinventing is just like a lot of letting go and allowing, and a little bit of space for the magic of what could be around the corner. And I think I remember visiting you in Santa Monica. We walked around the farmers market when you told me like, yeah, this is like the job and I don't feel like, yeah, tell me about like that feeling too of like letting go of Tushies almost.
Yeah, I think it's
and taking on this new
identity almost,
yeah,
right? Like trying on different pairs of shoes. And at that point, I really wasn't sure if I was going to stay long term. And I don't think anybody could think like a job or a person or a partner or anything could like truly save a person, right? Like, I think that's what like an empowered move means. Is like, I'll try it. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And like, how do you trust that process? That's the interesting part, because I took a job that wasn't necessarily in my line of like my background. I had a marketing background, and this was a little bit different. And but I trusted the process. And I think because I had this time away, I developed my own self-worth where
Yes.
where when you go back, you have better boundaries.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Yes. Let's touch on that a little
Let's
bit.
touch on that because I think at least as college graduates, like when you're first out into the working world, you want to do your best,
Oh my
you want
gosh.
to work really hard, you want to do crazy hours, you want to prove to your boss you're worthy.
Yeah, it was almost like, especially because I worked at like a public accounting firm, like Big Four. It was always like you just wanted to prove yourself, and you wanted to be the first one in, last one out. Like, I don't know, maybe I just had that like very driven mentality, like coming out of college, and I think I was just a yes woman. Like, I said yes to everything. I didn't even take, so my company offered like a sabbatical at the time, and you could get paid like 40% of your income and be gone for like 2 months. And because I was like so gung-ho about like staying, I didn't even take advantage of it, kind of thing. But yeah, like speaking of boundaries, like now, like 7 years into my, like this year is my eighth year of like being in finance. Like, I have so much more boundaries, and I know that like there will be more work tomorrow, but tonight, like I'm done for the day, kind of thing. And just being like okay to be like, wow, yeah, I'm okay, and then tomorrow's a new day. Like,
Yeah. Like I am still worthy if I don't have to like work to death to be worthy, right?
Yeah.
Like we're not hustling for our worth,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
I think this is what it means now. Maybe like how I got here was because I took myself out of the corporate world for a little bit to develop that sense of identity. And maybe you have like a very similar track of like, I just want to do my own thing for a while.
yeah. And then I think like so much of mine was like rest driven, because if you read the Medium post that I shared, I just rested a lot. And I think so like age wise, I'm 32 turning 33 this year.
I'm 33. So,
Okay,
yeah.
so we're like right around that same age, and
Yeah.
now in our 30s, like stuff is shifting. Like things that what we think about, our priorities, what we care about is shifting. And to touch on that more, like maybe we can get into what success means to you and what financial independence means to you.
Yeah. I think financial independence really, at the end of the day, rolls into independence. Like, what does it mean to be free? What does it mean to truly be yourself in a way that you are still worthy regardless of what somebody else thinks, right? And that shows up everywhere. Like, if we ever talk about work or finance, it always bleeds into like personal life, because if you have poor boundaries at work, you're going to have poor boundaries at home, right? Things like that, where when we decide to do something, it's very much it's pervasive, right, through everything in our life. And I think this is a really good, interesting like topic to go into, is like the work-life balance. Is it a balance, or is it an integration of like, if you're over giving at work, what else are you losing in your, and that's like maybe your identity, or maybe like, you know, whatever, self-care, or, but I think what success means to me at the end of the day is it's emotional freedom. And like, emotional freedom can come from many things. Money is a tool to help you feel more free. Not everybody cares for it, and it could be used for bad, but
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, we just want to feel like we could be ourselves and still be loved.
Yeah, I like that. I've been like asking myself this question of like what success means to me too, and like I think it's twofold. I think I've realized like success means it's freedom and choice. Those two for me.
It goes
It's
hand
like
in hand,
yeah, it
right?
does. It really does, because like if you have choices, you feel more free. So
Right.
I guess like, and also I think success is starting to look like just being happy on the inside. Because I personally like, I'm in my former pre-yoga days, I'm very like type A, and I just like, I think I'm very competitive with myself too, and so like I get triggered sometimes by like, okay, this is happening to other people, and like I'm here, and I don't know, I think it's like maybe just going inward and like, are you actually happy though with like the life that you are living, or the life that you've created, and just maybe that's enough, is like, are you happy?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I want to go back a little bit to like
Yeah.
when you were talking about when you had to switch from yoga back to corporate. You said there's a death or that you felt a loss of freedom.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me concretely about when you went back to corporate, what happened to your yoga? Did it get better?
Oh,
Did
yeah.
you lose? You lost a little bit of time, but maybe you had peace elsewhere.
Yes, wait, that's a great question. So I actually found more joy in my teaching because I no longer had it as my main source of income and there wasn't this much pressure on it, and I was able to do it like only 2 times a week, like teach only 2 times a week, and I just felt like that flow felt like fit better with what I was trying to do, because I think yoga is a lot of giving, and sometimes like you can over give and not like receive. So for example, like now because I've opened up my schedule to where like I'm working but only teaching 2 classes a week, then I can take my own yoga practice a few times a week. So it's like it's so much more integrated and balanced, I feel.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think one thing with like I went back to work as well 4 years ago, that sometimes going back to work doesn't mean that you have to give up your like passions. Sometimes it fuels your passions because now you have more.
Yeah.
You're not dependent on it, so there's no like resentment of like, oh, I'm not making enough money, or like it's really hard to be a freelancer or a contractor. You know, it's like
Yeah.
you could put however much money into your passions and grow
Yes.
that, right?
And I realized too, I think you and I were talking about this offline, is that like you don't necessarily have to quit your job like to feel like this is my passion or to be fulfilled. I think it's so much about finding that alignment, whether it's alignment with the company, alignment with the work format, the schedule. Like there's all these little nuances like about work where you're like, what part is making me unhappy and what actually like would feed my soul. And so like you thrive right now in a fully remote like work environment, right? And Anne is moving to Portland from LA, and yeah, kind of talk on how you find your work life now and how you see it like evolving, I guess.
Yeah, I think throughout these couple years, one thing that was really huge for me is I started therapy. So after I came back, right, and I had a regular job that like I had, in a way I had better boundaries because I had a 9 to 5. So then like I didn't have to think about my business all day long. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of small, medium businesses, the owners are thinking about work all day long, right? How to make ends meet, how to make sure things are running. Like at that point I had clear space on this is work, and then I could go do whatever I want in the evening. And one of the things that I finally had time to do was find a therapist. And so therapy had helped me really figure out why I am the way I am in terms of like, what did I put my worth in? And I think what's interesting that came out of it is I think I trust things a little more on like, I don't automatically think worst case scenario. I think it's very normal for human beings, right? Because that's how we have survived through these tens of thousands of years, is like this flight or fight mode where you're kind of just like, worst case possible, I need to prepare myself.
Yeah.
Right? Kind of doomsday thinking. And like we build protection around that. Either that's perfectionism or not being seen, or there's so many things that we do to like hide, right? But throughout, for me, therapy, it really helped, I think, find that kind of like trust of like, okay, what do I really think it's gonna happen? Like what is realistic? Okay, like do an exercise of what is the best case scenario of this, what could happen, and what is the worst case scenario I'm thinking, and what is the realistic?
Ooh, I like that.
Right? So you're like kind of, and I do that all the time now, and now it's a lot better where I'm like, if something doesn't work as I thought, okay, what's next?
Oh, I see. So, you know, we were at dinner last night, and so I see your thought process now, because you were saying like, you know, this move to Portland, like if it's not everything I hoped or dreamed, or I'm not happy, then so and so and so. Like
There's
other
still
options.
a way out, right? Like,
yeah. Okay. That's cool.
right?
I like that.
Because I think a lot of times, especially like home buying process, I just went through it, and it's like oh my gosh, I'm going to put myself through a 30-year mortgage and I'm going to pay this every single month. Like, what if I wanted to do something else? What if I lost my job? Like, what ifs, right?
Yeah,
of the world.
all
And-
these what ifs come
and
to
like
mind.
to develop that trust a little bit, even if I'm like, yes, I'm going to have a mortgage now, but I still have a way out of things, right?
Yeah.
Like, I could sell the place in 3 to 5 years, or I could let it, rent it out. There's options versus thinking I'm going to die or I'm going to be bankrupt and I'm going to die, right?
Yeah, and it's this like commitment. It's like I commend you so much because you're taking the next step in your journey. And how does this actually, like, kind of piggybacking on this, like, how does this fit with your overall kind of like financial plan, asset allocation? Like, let's get into that. Talk to me about, how this house fits into your plans, your asset allocation, what this means for your financial journey, and kind of like, so we wouldn't call ourselves like FIRE, like financial independence, retire early. We're more of like the FI side. But yeah, please feel free to share.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has been saving and just investing. And I think I have, since the pandemic, 2021, I decided to move back home to my parents. And so I've been lucky enough and privileged enough to be able to save on rent during these times. And so I was able to get like a little bit of money that I would have spent on rent otherwise in Santa Monica. And so I thought to myself, like, I think I could own a place and have it as my home base for a while, just because I'm able to work remotely now, that might as well go and explore a new place and find a new sense of adventure again. I haven't traveled in a while. Yeah, it's been 4 years, but also
since you got back from
right. Since I got back, but also like the pandemic hit and all that. Otherwise, I'd still be traveling a lot, I feel like. And I would probably have spent a lot of my extra funds not on rent.
your disposable income on traveling.
Right.
Yeah.
That's always been
yeah,
like where I
that's
felt
true.
alive. But all of a sudden, travel stopped for me.
Oh yeah.
But instead of like spending on other things, I just saved it. And so I always thought that,
I can hold it for you.
yeah, I always thought that, like, oh, maybe I wanted to be a nomad. I didn't want to have like a home base and I would just travel the world. And I commend people who do that, but I feel like I need a home base, even if it's small. So I got a 1-bed, 1-bath condo. It's, for me, because it's small, it's a little more affordable, that it could be my home base for a while. And if life changes, I'll move with life, but it's a small enough place where I didn't overbuy so that I would like
Yeah.
now be stuck to it, right?
Yeah.
So
and I really admire your process of like doing all the numbers, the calculations, and just keeping things like to where you're not house poor and you still have a like disposable income, and you're just kind of like, it just makes so much financial sense. So that's something that like is really awesome to have. And yeah, I'm just like excited for you in this next chapter. What do you think is next for you as far as anything at all? Like, what's next, and what are you excited to learn in life?
I think, so the first thing, I'll have to move and just kind of get settled in a new city, but I'm excited to start creating more things. Since Tushy's, I really haven't done much, and I think at least us, we're very, I think, creative people, and like we want to create things and share good things to the world. And so I decided I'm going to start a podcast, and so this is partly going to be part of the podcast. So it's called Solo Chapters, because I'm like a single woman and I'm trying to figure out in the world, and I'm not waiting for someone to like make me happy. Like, I bought this condo on like by myself, right? Like, I didn't need to wait for somebody to like, oh, I need this person in order to do this. Like, I don't wait for that anymore, and I'm just going to do things. And so Solo Chapters is going to be my next project.
I love it. I love the name. And I just think, even though I have been with Lennox for 3 years, I've always been of the mindset of not putting your life on hold and just truly living your life to the fullest, and having a partner that will just align with what you're looking for. So I know. I do think that you will meet someone in Portland.
We'll see.
We'll see. But obviously that's not the only reason. But it's just like a great place to live. And so, and then for me, sharing a little bit about like how, I guess, the whole financial picture of like what I'm envisioning for me is that I just really want to get better as an investor. I didn't realize, so apart from my passion for yoga, I didn't realize I actually had a passion for finance. Like, I guess it's because, like, my brain just works that way. But I want to continue to improve, like, being, like, a investor, like, my risk appetite, knowing how to just, like, build an overall, like, balanced financial picture, I guess. And to get more specific on that, like, I have, you know, a lot of my other more like less risky investments in things like mutual funds or index funds. A part of my like investing was also a little bit of options trading on the selling premium side, so selling covered calls and selling put options. So that's a completely different vlog post, but I found that was really interesting and kind of a unique way to make passive income, which is like apart from like collecting rent on an actual real estate property, it's kind of like collecting rent on your stocks. That's like a good kind of what do you call that, metaphor for it. And then lastly, I think I just want to like learn how to allocate capital, kind of like these like big institutions. Like it's almost like the power and the allocation and the funds is like all at this top line, like very homogeneous, like part of society. And if you are anywhere at all aware of finance, like you would know that it's just like it's the 1% and then like below that and all that. And it's like obviously I'm not an accredited investor, but I just want to continue to build up to that and be able to, like, I work in private equity, so just like truly see like the inside of it, being able to also like have some skin in the game, like things like that excites me a little bit, because I was an immigrant, like we grew up like upper middle class and nothing again, and then it's kind of like been an up and down like financial journey for me. So it's like it's almost this mentality of you can create a better life for yourself, I guess, to where like you're more comfortable. And I mean, even like giving up my salary to then be a yoga teacher, it's like a lot. My story has been a lot of like financial up and downs, like, so I'm working on like my money story and like my money mentality. But yeah, I think I just really want to like learn how to be a great investor, and then I think figure out one day if real estate works in the whole picture, because like I am someone that really wants to live by the ocean, and as you know, like in California, that comes at a steep price tag to buy. And so I don't know, like kind of like no expectations. Like I live by the beach now in La Jolla, and we're renting this like I'm renting this really like cute little like 1 bedroom that has flaws. I won't get into it. It's not perfect. But honestly, it like helps keep my expenses low. Like I was sharing with Anne last night, like since I switched from being a yoga teacher to being back working full time, I still haven't upgraded my lifestyle in the sense of like I'm in the same apartment.
There's no lifestyle inflation.
Not yet.
Right? Because
yeah.
it's so easy as you earn more income every year to just spend it, right?
Yeah.
Like, I deserve it. I deserve good things.
Yeah.
And then what we want to achieve is financial independence, and that needs investing, because your goal after describing all that is you want the money to work for you.
Yes.
Right? You don't. Yes, you're working for money right now, but you're trying to put aside the excess you have to invest it so that it grows.
Totally. Because when I quit the first time, I had some money, but it wasn't enough to retire forever and just teach yoga, right? And so I was like, okay, if I do this again one day, like down the road, I want to like have things set up. And I think it's beautiful to even have the privilege to like have amounts of money to invest, like, or even have amounts of money to like buy a place. Like
I think we're very privileged, but we also work super hard. And, we are like 33, we're both 33 almost. Yeah. And it did take like, that was like a 13-year, from 20 to, we're like 13 years out of being 20, which is crazy. So yeah, I don't know. I think Anne is one of my friends where I just love asking her like money questions. Cause
I love asking you too, because you always have like the investment kind of strategies in mind. I'm more like safe, I'll invest in index funds and stuff, but I'm not into like options trading or individual stock holdings. So.
Yeah. And I think it's just like so great because you have so much common sense and like business sense and real world like experience that I trust your judgment. And yeah, I mean, not every trade has gone perfect for me, obviously, but I think as long as the asset allocation is within you where you're not risking it all, I think it is fine to like kind of play around. And so as we wrap things up, what are some of your takeaways from our conversation and things that you maybe want to share with people our age out there who are watching this or who may be watching this?
Yeah, I think figuring out your why is going to be a huge thing. And whatever that looks like, some people it's travel, some people it's taking time off, some people it's quitting their corporate job and diving deep into a passion they love, even if it's not going to pay the bills or it's going to be a struggle for a while. But I think find that space, right? And I fully recognize that that's a privilege because not everybody could just quit their jobs. But I think finding whatever way, whatever teacher, whatever resources to get out, like podcasts are free, books, you can get it at the library. Like, how do we develop that growth mindset and that resilience to challenge your identity? Because we will continue to reinvent ourselves, right?
Yeah,
and I think that's what's like, just because we're like this today doesn't mean that a future video or a future podcast is going to be so it's almost like, let's celebrate who we are today. Right. Enjoy the journey, enjoy the process, and see where it goes.
Oh my gosh, I'm getting emotional a little because I'm like, this is a timestamp in our in our year, and it's like you and I have already kind of lived through a lot of different adventures, and I feel like, how about you? Okay, so for me, takeaways is that actually, as you and I have spoken, I was just really proud of us because we've come so far and we've really done the inner work and we've just, I think, done a lot of like introspection and self-reflection. So as we were like conversing, I was like, oh wow, like I'm really proud of the journey. And then I think to share with other people watching, I think the biggest thing, if anything, that has helped me throughout all this is just taking the next step. And even though you don't know what it looks like. And so that could apply in so many different, ways. Like even if you're going through something really hard right now, like just taking the next step or, but all in all, it's like only doing what feels really, really good to you, like in here and in here, like as the next step, like not self-abandoning, like making your own choices and really just like, does this feel good to me? Like, is this authentic? Like when I came back when I went back into my job, it was like, yes, this feels good because now I won't be financially insecure. Now I'll have some more stability and I can have that mind space to, really like explore like mentally and emotionally. Or when I took this full-time role, it's like, does this feel good to where, I'm going to be working in Newport, but I live in San Diego? Like, does that feel good? So it's like standing your ground, knowing your worth, and just like really knowing yourself, I think.
Yeah, taking that time to know yourself, to know your why, and trust the process and be okay with the unknown sometimes, right?
Yeah. And then I think, I remembered one more thing. It's just like, try not to compare.
That's really hard, right?
Because I remember like in that season where I wasn't, I don't know, you can always compare. It's always like grass can always be greener somewhere else. Someone's doing something cool. Like
I don't know. We just gotta like do your thing, like whatever that is. Like I think it's a struggle with social media, and obviously this is a social media platform, but I hope like this is, you know, helpful. But I think it's just like so easy to get wrapped up in comparison these days, and I think, you know, I fall into it all the time, and I share with you. I'm like, Anne, I'm triggered, please help. But I think, yeah, just stay in your own lane.
Yeah. Have you heard the saying, the grass is green where you water it?
Yes.
Right? So it's like,
that's very true.
You can always compare. Somebody else's grass is different. It could be greener, but then they're comparing their grass to somebody else even greener.
Yeah.
Right? There's always going to be somebody smarter, prettier, skinnier, like name it all. But like, how do we stay in our own lane and we trust our own journeys? And so, yeah, I think that's gonna wrap us up here. But yeah, thank you so much.
let's both share, how do we find each other? So feel free to share with everyone on YouTube how we can find you.
Yeah, so my personal Instagram is AnneChatPra, ANNECHATPRA. I haven't updated in a while, but I hope to get back into it soon. Send me a DM, let me know that you've seen this. I would love to have a few more friends from Bianca's podcast, but and then I'm also starting a podcast called Solo Chapters, so you could search for that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you're listening to podcasts. Solo Chapters.
Yeah, she's already got an episode in there.
Up, so I'll try to get this audio and post that there as well, so that we could get the audio and share our journeys there as well. How about you, Bianca?
Yeah, so to find me, my website is biancabonus.com. My YouTube is YouTube.com/Bianca Bonus. I think there's a C in there, and then my Instagram is Bianca_bonus.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's pretty much Bianca Bonus. There is another Bianca Bonus in Germany. She's like a mom of 3 or something, and she's German. But yeah, that's how you find me.
Cool. So thank you so much for having me here.
No, thank you for being here. We're gonna have some dinner now, and thank you so much for watching.
Bye.
Bye.